This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, welcome back to another fabulous edition of AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. And with me, I have a fabulous guest. And Dan, Janal, and I go back. Dan, how many decades is it?
I think Gutenberg was still alive back then. And you were teaching him things. You were teaching Gutenberg how to really get those Bibles off that press and get them done efficiently. I don't know anyone who knows more about book publishing than you do. You are my go-to resource, and I'm absolutely delighted that you invited me to be on your program today.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. Well, Dan came into my radar when, now here we are, dinosaurs here, when AOL came along. And AOL, if those of you can recall, I mean, it's still out there, of course, and it's still awfully big. But AOL was the groundbreaker when it came to online emails and so many things. And Dan was the brains involved with the launch of all things AOL. And so in the marketing, so we're going back a long, long way. Since those times, he is the brains behind PR leads and has always been a go-to expert in the press releases and getting things out and how to position individuals, whether it's books, authors, products, projects, fill in the blank. Dan really has been the go-to person. And now he is another go-to person because he's created an awesome book called Write Your Book in a Flash. So when you think about, and Dan would be proud of me because my book, and I'm so tickled with it, Dan. It just arrived. The cases arrived at my doorstep here earlier this week, and that it is a book I wrote in a flash. I wrote it in 1 week, an entire book.
Wow.
And now you go to editing, that. And then we had been working on the illustrations. We knew it's full color illustrated book. It's the 4th book in the mini guide series called How to Create a $1 Million Speech. I've done it, and I'm showing you how to do it. So with that, Dan has created a book that makes my heart sing called Write Your Book in a Flash. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, focusing on that. So we have got a visionary in publicity, a visionary in publishing, and he himself is, as I said, an author. He's written 12 books. He's a speaker. He's a book coach. He's a ghost writer. He is a developmental editor. This is a man of all trades. So welcome to the program, Dan.
Well, thank you very much, Judith. I'm really blown away. That was quite wonderful. I'm going to use that introduction. I think when I speak, I'll just have your voice come over the loudspeaker. That was just so wonderful of you. And I'm so proud of you. You show that you could write a book in a flash in just 1 week. And I have clients who can do that. And I'm sure there are people on the line saying, oh my gosh, I can't possibly do that. And we're going to spend the next hour or so giving you tips, tricks, and ideas to get you over your limiting beliefs so you can write your book in a flash as well. It's really, well, I'm not going to say it's not hard to do, but once you have a system that you can rely on, it becomes a lot easier and you can get out of your own way, which is probably a big problem for people because, writing is the only profession that has built-in excuses like, oh, I have writer's block. Oh, I'm waiting for inspiration. I mean, how many people are listening have said that to themselves? Well, the guy who digs ditches, he doesn't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm looking to be inspired today. I have ditch digger's block. No, they go out and they dig the ditches. There is no alternative. And I think for writers, it's the same thing. But I want to make it easy. If you can write 15 minutes a day, just 15 minutes a day, everyone has 15 minutes a day, you can write your book in 3 or 6 months. And, I would say that's the slow side, but it's slow, consistent, and the tortoise wins the race. Just 15 minutes a day. And if you can't commit to even 15 minutes, which is such a low barrier, then, give it up. You just really don't want to write your book, and you should hire someone to write your book for you. Just come to grips with that, because, I want to play the guitar. So I set up this spreadsheet, and I said, I will play for 15 minutes a day, every day, and I have this little check mark in my spreadsheet. And, I haven't picked up the guitar in 3 months. And I came to the realization that says, if I can't make that little commitment, I'm not going to be the next Eric Clapton. That's okay. I'll buy his records, but it ain't going to be me. But if you can just put 15 minutes aside every day, you can write enough words to write your book. That's one little tip. We'll have a lot more. I'm going to be quiet and let you ask the questions now.
All right. Well, one of the things that, I'm going to add on to that, because 15 minutes is Zippo. I have worked with people for decades, and I can tell you, I have never found anyone who doesn't kiss off at least an hour every day. Kiss off. And I think that when you're asking for just, Dan, a little nugget of 15 minutes, and I have to tell you, I'm a binge writer, and that's why I go into a deep dive intensive. It's all I think and do from the moment I wake up until I have my clock. And usually I will work for, anywhere from 12 to 14 hours straight with I get bathroom breaks, but that's it. And that's how I put it together. And I know I have planning. I mean, here we are, the first part of June. I have planning taking my grandson on to Alaska at the end of the month. This is our grandson trip. And my older daughter is going with us. And I am taking a book that I wrote, and people have been hounding me to get back out again. And it's called When God Says No. It opens on the death of my 19-year-old son. And it's my journey. And we sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies. It was a book that if any book walked off the table because people just wanted it, they just took it. That was the book. And I am actually taking it back. And during these 10 days I'm away, I will do a full repurpose of that book and get ready to republish it in July. So you can do this. I'm the binge. I do deep down. Dan is just saying, hey, give me a 15-minute nugget a day, and you're going to have a book in you. So with that, Dan, let's talk about, first of all, what's happened in the industry that's allowed us to make these quick changes and these pivots.
That's a great question, a great place to start. And I just want to let everyone know that everyone has different biorhythms. That's why 15 minutes a day works for some people, 12 hours a day works for other people, and there are other spots in the middle. So somewhere in there, you will find your spot. So what's happened since I wrote my first book in 1991? Well, I self-published that book because it was a book on how to publicize high-tech products and services. And it was a very narrow niche. I was in PR for the software industry. I did PR for, as you said, AOL and many other groundbreaking high-tech companies and products back then. So there was no publisher interested because the publishers acted as the gatekeeper, and you needed a literary agent to introduce you to a publisher because publishers wanted to make sure there was a vetting process because they wouldn't take anything that just came over the transom. So here we go, 25, 30 years later to today's market, and there are no more gatekeepers because anyone in the audience today can go onto Amazon, go onto CreateSpace, go onto other services like that, upload your book as a PDF file, and an hour or two later have it available for sale on Amazon. So the big difference in publishing is that there used to be gatekeepers, now there aren't gatekeepers. It meant 25 years ago, if a book was published, it was probably a darn good book. Today, there is no gatekeeper. So there are some books published that are really, 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 really good, and some books that, frankly, shouldn't be published at all, but it's a democracy. Everyone can get the book out there. So years ago, you could have said, well, if I write my book, what happens if a publisher doesn't take it on? What if a literary agent doesn't take it on? I wasted all that time and money. No, now today, you are your own boss. You're your own publisher. You can get your book out there. You can market your book. And I know Judith has a lot of podcasts on how to market your book and her seminars and her in-person workshops and conferences that are absolutely wonderful for marketing your book. But today we're going to talk about how to actually get that book onto paper, onto your computer screen, out of your body, and into and up to Amazon so you can start selling your book. That's the biggest change in all those years. You now have control. You can get your message out there.
Which is really pretty exciting. So you can go everyone from the DIY crowd, which is, where the Create Space and all that has come into play, and Ingram Sparks. And you could upload it, you use what they've got. And of course, as you know, Dan, Create Space has changed quite a bit over the last couple of months where they're not going to let you do the editing and all those other goodies. But here, I'd recommend it if you really want a little bit better looking template, you've got some options. Go over to Joel Friedlander at thebookdesigner.com and pull down his templates. He's always got flash sales going on. And you can create you can get a really spiffy template for around $50. How cool is that? Really?
Wow, that's great.
Cool. So that's thebookdesigner.com. All right, we've got about 40 seconds to our next break. But here's what I would like Dan to start kissing on, and then we'll carry it into. So, how do we overcome limiting beliefs that stop us from writing a book? So kiss on that a little bit, and then we'll take our first break.
Okay, great. A lot of people don't write their books because they think they're not good writers or grammar or spelling or whatever. Well, don't worry about that because you can hire a copy editor. They always clean up your work. They make you look sharp, and they polish your prose, and they can make anyone look good.
And everyone needs a copy editor, and maybe 2 or 3. I mean, the one I blew out here in a week, how to write a $1 million speech, is actually it's a 5x7. It's full color throughout. It's 300 pages, but it's a lot of graphics. A lot of that kind of thing. Images, fun, and I had 3 edits after I was done. 3 edits to come in and put that together. So we could get rid of that, because when you're writing your book in the flash, which is what Dan's talking about, he's really doing that push in that you're not going to let your brain stop you and make it and do the editing. He wants you to get it out. Is that correct, Dan?
Exactly. When we come back from the break, I'm going to talk about how I use the paint by numbers system to write the book of your dreams fast.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll be right back. It's Dan Janal with Judith Briles for you.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Sellinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right. What I love about Dan Janal is he talks as fast as I do. Cool as that. All right. So here we go. We're talking about how to write your book in a flat. The first nugget is you find 15 minutes a day. Or as Dan says, because I'm a binge writer, you find the block of time and you block it out and you don't let anyone, unless it's death or dismemberment of some sort, violate that. All right. So I'm really firm on this thing because this is how I have written 36 books now. So with that, Dan, we really, I kind of kissed. I went into the whole area of what should we be doing? What are our overcoming the beliefs that we get stuck in? And you were starting down on that path.
Yeah, a lot of people just don't know where to get started. They can't get focused. They don't know what to write, or they start writing and they run out of steam. And that's why I created what I call the paint by numbers system to write the book of your dreams fast. And remember those paint by numbers systems when you were a kid, these little pictures, in third, fourth grade. I remember my mother got me one of those things when I was sick, and that was this picture of this barn and this farm scene. So, you didn't have to be a great painter or anything, because, up to that point I was like painting with like finger paints, crayons and, coloring outside the lines and stuff. But around third, fourth grade, you get to be pretty, you get a little bit better muscle control there. So I got this paint by numbers kit, and you didn't have to be a great painter. This is the point here, because all the outlines, that's the key word, all the outlines of the figures in the picture were all filled in. There was the clouds, but they were all white, and there was the barn, and it was white. There was the cow, and it was white, and had little spots on it that you would paint, brown, and that'd be number 16, the brown color, and you paint the sky, be the number 12, the blue, and there'd be a lighter blue that'd be number 11, and then you get to the barn, and there were the red, and there are 3 different shades of red, 2, 3, and 4. So you pick up your little pencil, your little crayon, and you fill in those blanks there. Well, and then when you were done, you had a good-looking painting. And no one would say you're Picasso, but everyone said, you got it done. It looks good. It looks like a farm. This is really nice. This is great. Who would have thought that a third grader could do a picture this good? And the truth of the matter is that writing your book is absolutely no different, because instead of an outline of the cows, you have an outline of your book. Instead of an outline of the barn, you have a deep outline of each chapter in your book. And I created a mnemonic that I call descriptors, because people run out of ideas of what to put in your book. Well, if you have these descriptors, which is a mnemonic for, diagrams, personal stories, case studies, illustrations, cartoons, quotes from famous people, quotes from your interviews, research reports, studies, statistics, stories, anecdotes, all those quizzes, interactive tools, you put all of those into your chapters, you will never, ever run out of things to write about, which is a problem that people have when they write books. They say, I have no more ideas. Well, if you follow the descriptors program, and if you use the paint by numbers system, you'll very easily outline your book, and then you just go back in and fill in your outline. And if you're the kind of person who says, well, I feel like writing about something that I want to get off my chest, I want to vent today, then you go to chapter 5, subsection 2, where you're writing a story about how to deal with angry people in angry situations, and you write that anecdote, you write that story, you write that portion of the book. And the next day, you say, hey, I'm really feeling kind of mellow today. I want to put some statistics in here, or I want to search for the web for some cartoons or some graphics to illustrate my point. You go in and you do that, because every day we feel a little bit different. We have different levels of energy. But as long as you fill in the outline, I don't care if you go from chapter 1, part 1 to chapter 10, part 10. You can go any part in between. And that's a problem that some people have. They think they have to start at the beginning, which is really the roughest place to start, and work you through from beginning to end. Not true. When you have a paint by number system, if you feel like painting the barn today, paint the barn. If you want to paint the cow, paint the cow. So this way, if you have your 15 minutes or your 12 hours or anything in between, you can go wherever your heart and your mind and your inspiration takes you, because your outline, your structure will keep you focused. So you will write that book. And in Judith's case, it takes about 24 hours. In my case, might take 2 or 3 months. That's okay. But you will get your book done.
Dan, what you're really talking about is so, to me, it's elementary, but it's one of those things that really does stop a lot of authors. They think they have to start from the very beginning and go through systematically. Chapter 1, I have to complete. Chapter 2, I have to complete. That is just such nonsense. I think when you go, your paint by number, or you take your coloring page, there's always, if you remember on a coloring, well, not all, but a lot of times they had border on those old coloring pages, and the picture was inside, the blank picture was inside. I always think of a book as I like to do puzzles, and I think of a book as a puzzle. And there's always going to be corners. I mean, there's always going to be key points, and you've got little borders. But it's all these fabulous pieces, and sometimes you just don't know how those pieces are going to go together. You just have to get it out, and then you can start doing your sorting and pulling around.
That's so true. And a lot of people on this call, on this podcast, actually have a lot of those borders already in their portfolio, and they may not realize it. So if you've given a speech, you have a border. If you write a blog consistently, you have a border. If you've written articles, you have a border. Those are the foundations of your book. So you don't have to start from scratch. You can take your existing material and rework it and put it into your book. In fact, I have a client who just took all of her blog posts, well, not all of her blog posts, but the book is composed just of her blog posts. So she took the 20 or 30 best. It was a book for nonprofits, how they can work more effectively. She took her best blog posts together, put them in a book, and that book has won numerous awards. So you may be sitting on all the content you need right now, and all you might need to do is write a few introductory chapters or a few introductory paragraphs, and maybe edit the things for current events, and then you're done with your book. And that's really writing your book in a flash. So look at your inventory of content. You may have a book inside you that's already been written. You just have to edit it together or hire an editor to put it together for you.
Yeah, and that is such a freaking home run thing. I mean, I have been promoting people taking their blogs, doing a repurpose on them, maybe putting them into sections. Maybe there's a theme that goes with some of these. It would be ideal. We just did this with a client. And the book is called Musings, and it's a little book. It's a 5x7. We all love it, and it has different sizes. Not, some are a little longer blogs than others. And then he co-did it with a good friend of his who does some wonderful art, and we have this art interweaved. Some of her paintings woven throughout, and it is. He sold 500 copies in 2 weeks. How cool is that?
Yeah, that really is. And you bring up another really, really good point. When we think of a book, we think of, 200 pages, black text, black ink on white background. Maybe there's some pictures, and that's your book. And it's true. That is a good book. But I was at a seminar just the other day, and the keynote speaker, a very famous person in customer service, had given out copies of his book. And he was one of the best speakers I've ever heard. He was funny. He was humorous. He had us on the edge. He was just great. And he'd given us copies of his book. And I looked at the book beforehand, and he asked for questions. And I stood up, kind of meekly, and I said, I'm holding your book. I said, it's kind of small, because it had maybe 75 pages. And it's kind of thin because it was like, 3x4 is really a really small format. You said 5x7, your book. This was much, much, much smaller. And it was hardcover. And it was full of pictures and anecdotes and stories. And I said, but there's a lot of real value here. And I said, is this the kind of book that we need to write going forward? And he said, it sure is.
Yes,
because that book was written for line people. It was written for the customer service people in restaurants and hotels, and they're not going to read a 200-page book that's full of dense type and a lot of ink. They want pictures, they want inspirational quotes, they want short, happy stories. So think about what your audience really wants, because I want to tell you, you are not here to write the encyclopedia of your topic. People don't want to read it. People want to get on a plane in New York, pick up your book, and by the time they land in LA, they have finished your book. And in my case, one of my clients or one of my readers said, I read your book and then I started writing on the rest of the plane ride, which was great.
Don't you love that? Don't you love that? I love hearing those stories.
Exactly. But the point is that no one wants the big omnibus book anymore. They want something that gets them inspired and solves a problem. It's the only reason why anyone buys a book is to solve a problem. So your quest as a thought leader, as a coach, as a speaker, is to say, what is the problem that my core audience, my best prospect, needs to solve? And then I want to write 10 chapters that show how I can help that person solve that problem. And I'll fill that book with case studies and examples, things that I've done, things that my clients have done, things that I found on research. And by the end of that book, when they're finished reading that book, they're going to say, I know, like, and trust Dan. And if I ever have this problem and I need to hire a consultant, or I need to hire a book coach, or a writer, or whatever it is that you do, I'm going to call Dan because he's written the book. And everyone who's listening to this podcast is in the exact same position, because your book is your silent salesperson that helps you make the sale.
Well, I can't. We're going to take our next break here, but I can't emphasize that enough. A few years ago, I had a canvas that said, "Short is the new black." Short in your writing. Short sentences, sometimes one word. Short paragraphs. And I have to tell you, Dan, as a columnist for 10 years with the business journals, that I learned that there was great beauty in a one-sentence paragraph. And that is, the opposite of what so many writers practice and believe in. With that, we're going to take another quick break. Dan Janal is with me today. He is the author of Write Your Book in a Flash.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Want to publish like a pro today? Well, then take a look at Ingram Spark, the only publishing platform that offers print and ebook services through a single source. Upload, edit, and manage titles all in one place. Take more control of printing costs with print on demand, and reach even more readers through one of the world's most extensive distribution networks. Built by independent publishers for independent publishers, Ingram Spark has everything you need to maximize your book's potential: color printing, ebook distribution, print on demand, global reach, and more. Start publishing with Ingram Spark today and see just how far your titles will go tomorrow. That's ingramspark.com.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Oh, we're having some fun with my pal, Dan Janal, and his talking about his new
Hey,
book.
that rhymes. That's cool. I like that. I like that. This is my new motto. My pal, Dan Janal. See, the brainstorming, isn't that what happens when you collaborate? You know, I spoke to Ken Blanchard, and he, you know, of course, he's written 60 books, and all of them were co-authored. And we asked, like, why do you co-author a book? And, you know, you're so brilliant in yourself. You could write any of these books. And he said, I learned so much when I collaborate with someone else. Isn't that so humble? Isn't that so inspiring? I love that. And here we are, we're inspiring each other, and we're coming up with better ideas during this podcast. This is so cool.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I had the honor of being the other keynote speaker with Ken Blanchard one time. And let me, since we're talking about short is the new black, that in those 1 minute manager, Ken, in the 1 minute manager series, look what he did with short books. He revolutionized what happened in the business book writing. I mean, you know, Tom Peters, another friend of mine, was creating 500-page books, and Ken was coming up with this under 100-page deal. And then when the 16,000-word article came along, 16,000-word article, Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer came along, he totally revolutionized. And he's really, I think that was the true kickstart. You know, Ken seeded it, but Spencer Johnson really did the kickstart of shortening this up and doing the storytelling in certainly the nonfiction business writing. Would you agree with me, Dan?
Oh, totally. They sold 10 million copies. It's been revised several times. They got feedback from readers who said, what about this and this situation? So they listened to their readers and they updated it. You know, I'm co-writing a book pretty much like that right now. I have a client who's a doctor, and we're writing a book about telemedicine, which is the brave new world of medical care. And, you know, there are a lot of good things about telemedicine, and there are some things that they're dirty, dark secrets about telemedicine, too, that we need to be aware of. And we thought, you know, we'd write a very straight, matter-of-fact book, but frankly, it was boring. And if you went online and you typed, you know, what is telemedicine, you would have seen a 17-page document by some research company that would have told them everything they need to know about telemedicine. So I figured, like, what are we going to do? And I thought back to Who Moved My Cheese. So it's funny you brought that up. And I thought, let's write a business fable story. We'll feature a woman who just lost her health care, and she needs to find a new provider, and she hears about telemedicine, and she uncovers all these facts about telemedicine, you know, the good and the bad, and she goes on this hero's journey of finding goes undercover, meets all sorts of clandestine people who are leaking information from the companies, and finding out all the good and all the bad. And it's called, I guess I can say the name because we're going to be in production pretty soon, as well, Telemedicine Confidential, like Hotel Confidential and Kitchen Confidential. So we turned an idea that would have been dry and boring into an interesting story that, frankly, if I had more time and put in a couple more chase scenes, it would read like a Robin Cook mystery thriller, medical thriller. So people want to be entertained when they read. That's the bottom line.
Oh, Dan, I have an idea for us to do a book together. And I'm sending it to you as we write. Okay, here we go.
Cool.
Let's move along. Yeah.
I'm glad everyone is listening into our private conversation here as we think of how we're going to dominate the world.
You can have fun when you work hard, everyone. I just really want you to know that. This is one of the reasons why I think it's really important for people to make sure you schmooze and you hang out with other authors who are really doing it, because that's where your new ideas are going to come from. And that's what's going to keep the juice going, the fire in your belly to keep moving forward, especially when you hit some of the potholes. And God knows both Dan and I know about potholes. So with that said, Dan, how do you figure out what your target audience is for your book and then they want to read? Because this is something that always comes up all the time.
Sure. As I said before, people buy books for only one reason. They want to solve a problem. So it's up to you to find out what is that problem. Now, you might think you have to hire a big research company and call 5,000 people to find out what their biggest problem is. And the truth of the matter is you don't. Here are two simple ways. Number one, you probably have an email list. Ask your email list. Say, what's your biggest problem? And you'll get a whole bunch of problems. You'll find the 80-20 rule will kick in, and most of the people will have a certain problem. That's what you write your book about. If you don't have a big list, you probably have a couple of clients. Call your 5 clients and say, hey, what's your biggest problem? And then you know what their problem is, and that's cool. But here's another way. Go to Amazon and look at all the books that compete with yours. And don't read the 5-star reviews. The 5-star reviews say, this book is wonderful. I really like this. That's great. You want to find the 3 and the 4-star and even the 2-star reviews, because those reviews will say, this was a really good book, but I wish they had spoken about whatever, or they really didn't address this issue. And those people are telling you what they want. And not only that, but these are the best people in the world, because these are people who bought and read a book. So they're far away your target audience, because they buy books, they read books, and they comment on books. So they're really telling you exactly how to write the book or get the idea for the book that they want to buy next. And then you can interview people and do your own research and flesh out those questions and write your book around that.
And I think that's the way to do it. I mean, I tell people to go down to the 1-star reviews and just 1 and 2. That's what I'm looking at, because what's really missing in there. Now, you have some people who make comments who've never, obviously they haven't even looked the books, trash that. Or I have to tell you, Dan, the first time I introduced the Sheepy Guys, I just didn't know what we call the Sheepy Guys and Gals, which are the illustrations in my books, were going to become part of my brand. Sometimes fluky things come in, but that someone said, well, how can I believe this book? It's got cartoons in it. And then I just fired back and I said, so do you know a guy by the name of Seth Golden? Do you know anything about Jeffrey Gittermore? Do you know anything about these top selling books that have sold a gazillion million copies? People like to be amused. People like to humor. And maybe it's not your cup of tea, so this book isn't for you. So send me your name and address. I'm glad to refund your money. Never heard from the guy. Never heard. But,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to watch out for those internet trolls. My book came out about a month ago, and I have a bunch of reviews on the Amazon page, and they're all 5-star reviews, so I'm really basking in that. But some of my books in the past have gotten some fewer stars, and just from people who are like, there was a typo, so this book sucks. And, you got to just throw that off here like a duck
That's right.
throwing water off. It's just there's some people out there whose opinions you do not want to care about. So this brings up an interesting point because before my book was written, I had a bunch of beta readers review my book. These were friends of mine.
Let's talk about beta readers. Let's talk about that.
Okay, cool. I did a seminar about a year ago. It's funny, it took about a year to write the book from start to finish of publication. So it was really just about a year ago. I did a live in-person seminar for my National Speakers Association chapter here in Minnesota, and there were about 25 people in the room. And I gave them, step by step. We wrote a good part of their books during that 3-hour seminar and got them focused. And afterwards, people said, hey, this is a really good idea for a book. I'd really like to read your book. When is it coming out? And I said, well, I'm just writing it now. And they said, well, I'd love to get an advanced copy to review. And I said, that's wonderful. So little did I know that this is actually a process called beta reviewers. These are people who read either a chapter of your book, or in this case, everyone will read the whole book. I was amazed. And they would write their comments. And I thought this was very brilliant. So I actually included a chapter on how to work with beta readers in my book. And here are a couple of quick tips. Number one, you want about 5 or 10 beta readers. And these are your typical readers. These are not your English professors. These are not your friends. No. These are actually your target people who are going to say, this case study didn't make sense, or this case study is opened my eyes and just is perfect. Those are the kind of people you want. You want to give them a deadline. You want to give them the option of saying, do you want to read a chapter because I know you're busy, or do you want to read the whole book? In my case, they want to read the whole book, which was very gratifying. And then I found there were 3 types of readers. Number one, the ones who wanted to do it but really blew it off. And, that's okay because they'll write a nice review for you. Then there's the second kind, which is like the 80% rule, who say, they will only point out things that they like, which is good. They're not critical people. They don't want to embarrass you. So they'll say, I like this chapter. I like this anecdote. I like this picture. I like this quote. And that's great because now you know what works, which is good. But you still don't know what doesn't work. Well, one of my readers was a former college professor, and she went through it with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, she pointed out things that didn't work. She pointed out stories I told twice and didn't realize. It was really, really a good edit, and I was very blessed to find that. So I realized at that point that I needed to tell and teach my beta readers and say, here's what I'm looking for, to give them some guidance and some instructions. Because let's face it, no one went to a class in college and said how to become a beta reader. I don't think many authors know how to become beta readers either. So you have to ask them, does this character work? Does this story flow? Do the chapters flow in the right order? Did I prove my point? Is this a good
Dan,
story?
Hold that. We're going to come back for our final break, and we'll kiss on that once more, because I think this is an essential idea for all authors to grasp. We'll be right back.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today. 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at MyBookShepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
One of the most important decisions you will ever make is your choice for printing your book. You are choosing a company which will be responsible for guiding you through the process and printing your book at a level of quality and detail that embraces your personal and creative needs. You want to choose a company that when your book finally arrives, you are delighted and ready to move on to the next level, and one that is customer focused. Choose King Printing Company and Addy Books to be that company that brings you to the next level. Go to kingprinting.com or call 978-458-2345 and ask for Tom Campbell.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right. We have like 12 plus minutes to go, and we can probably keep Dan on for another day, but we can't do that. So let's try to do some wrapping up. I wanted him to come back because we had to cut off very quickly. We were talking about the beta readers and who they are not. They are not the English teacher. They are not the, it may not even be an editor for it. It is a reader. It's a reader, part of your target market. But continue with what you're saying, and then we'll jump into a couple of other things.
Sure. I actually spoke about most of the things I want to talk about beta readers, but again, to emphasize one key point is that you need to tell them what to look for and what kind of feedback you want. And then they're worth gold because they do this for free, and then they become your advocates. Then they help you sell your book as they tell you their friends about the book, and then they write reviews for you about the book, or when they're writing their comments back to you, you can say, hey, this is really great. Can I use this as a review or a comment? And they're delighted because a lot of people don't know how to write reviews or comments. They think that'd be really long, but again, 2 sentences, 1 sentence. That's all you need in a comment. I read this book and it helped me get over my fears about writing a book. Bingo. That's all it has to say, and you've got a great quote. So your 10 or so beta readers can also become your first 10 reviewers, your first 10 advocates, and your first 10 marketers and marketing partners. So beta readers are worth a lot. They can be great people for your marketing campaign too.
All right, so everyone needs to keep that in mind, that you do want to have other readers to show, especially you newbies, or if you're working on a brand new concept idea, that you don't want to go down the wrong path if the readers aren't there. And I had a situation where I did a lot of work in the healthcare field, and I was going to be doing a book dealing with unions. And I had enough data dealing with unions and nursing unions that really showed that when they were in play, they really didn't increase productivity. They didn't increase morale. They didn't increase patient safety, reduce errors and all that. But I ended up not writing it because my audience was primary nurses and it wasn't the upper echelons of management. And I backed away after all the work I put into it. So
Wow.
you have to understand that.
Yeah, and that is an interesting anecdote because one of my clients that I worked with as a developmental editor for her book, she is a nurse and she wrote a book about using improv to improve communications in hospitals to get over exactly what you just said, the patient errors, people dying because of miscommunication or not sending up to a doctor, whatever. So I remember one situation, people wonder what a developmental editor does. Here's what they do. I read through her manuscript, read through a chapter, and she had a scenario of a conversation that was a bad conversation. Doctors not listening to nurses, doctors belittling the nurses, nurses not sticking up for their own rights, and a patient suffering as a result. So she said, instead, the nurse should have said, and she gave the improv answer, whatever, and then moved on. And I said, you know what's missing here is the conversation done right. So they can see how the conversation should have gone if they use this model. And she said, oh my gosh, that you're right. I missed that. How could I miss that? Well, that's what a developmental editor does. They see what you're missing. And I used to be a newspaper reporter and editor, and that's what we're trained to do. We see what's there. We see what's missing. We see that you buried the lead in paragraph 14, or in this case, chapter 11, and we say, this really should be much higher, or you should emphasize this, or this is what's missing. You need to flesh this out. You need to polish this up. That's what a developmental editor does. And a lot of people don't know that. They just think that there's a book coach. They think there's copy editors, but they miss that developmental editing point. And frankly, I wish I had a developmental editor when I wrote my book, because I looked at it after it was published. I said, oh my gosh, I forgot to mention what to do with ebooks in this situation. And, it's a little thing. It would have been one paragraph or maybe even, 3 sentences, but I wish someone was looking over my shoulder and saying, hey, what about this situation? And the book would have been that much stronger. I mean, it's still a very, very good book, but it would have been made that much better. And when we revise the book, I'll add that. And now I have a blog post that I can add as well. So, but again, you can't see it all. And that's why a development editor can come in and help save your bacon, basically.
And that's why I had Joel Friedlander reach out to me. He just published it that I'd recommend to everyone, self-publishing for seniors. Okay. And I ended up writing a huge amount of information because I work with a lot of seniors and getting their books out and why they do. And he ended up quoting me extensively within his article. But and now I haven't thought about doing a blog about that. I'm going to do it now since I supplied all the material. But there are things to be looking for. And, he reaches out to people that he knows is doing this, as you do. That, what are your thoughts? And he hadn't thought about multiple things I threw at him because I'm working joined at the hip with a lot of these people. And that's who you want to talk to. It goes back to your beta readers also, people who are really doing it.
Exactly. In fact, one of my clients that I'm helping now is in that age group as well, and she's writing a memoir. And a lot of people are writing their memoirs. Yep. And one of the ways I helped her is that she was going to tell the story of her entire life. And frankly, it was stymieing her. She couldn't get out of her own way. There was just too much. She had a very interesting life. There's no question that any part of her life would have been interesting in and of itself, but the entirety of it was just so daunting a task for her. I said, hey, why don't we just focus on this? Because this part it relates to the most people. They can get the most out of it. They will see themselves in your story here. It was a marriage and divorce. She was married to a narcissist, and bingo, need I say any more? So lots of women have been married to narcissists, and they can see themselves in that story and say, okay, here's what I could do. Here's how she recovered. Here's how I can recover based on what she's done. So now, focusing on one small part of her life, an important part of her life, instead of the entire 70 years of her life, she'll write a book that she can get her arms around that will actually help a lot of people. That's what a developmental editor does. They get involved, they get their hands dirty, they work with you to make that book the best book it can be.
Yeah, exactly. And I do, that's what I do in my book coaching. I'm really in on that side. All right, a couple of other questions I want to put out to you. We've talked about a whole bunch of things. And, from what a developmental editor does, you and I are both book coaches. But let me ask you this. Is there any secrets that book authors don't want to know, others to know? Is there anything that holds them back there?
Well, the biggest secret among thought leaders and coaches and speakers is the fact that they didn't write their books. They hired ghostwriters. And it's no shame to hire a ghostwriter. And here's why. You might be the king of real estate. And if you spend an hour on a real estate deal, you're going to make, several tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. You shouldn't be spending your time writing a book. It's like me spending time doing my accounting books. There are people who can do it better and do it faster and do it cheaper. And I can spend my time on more important, more lucrative, and more creative things to do. So that is the biggest secret, that it's okay to work with either a co-author or a ghostwriter to write your book. Your name can still be on the book because it's your original ideas. There's pride of ownership and all that. But a lot of famous people did not write one word of their books. They collaborated, or they hired a ghostwriter and gave them all their notes, or they said, interview me for 8 or 16 or 24 hours, and we'll get the book done there. And it's, Joe's 24 Secrets of Closing Big Real Estate Deals. And Jill actually wrote the book for Joe. And that's the way it's done today.
When I'm writing with an author, I actually don't want them to, I don't want a box of notes and try to put them together. What I do is I get their butts in my office, or we do it remote. You can do remote. And we write together. And you know what, Dan? They learn how to write. And that, I have to get inside their head. I've got to really understand. But they learn how to write in the process, which means book number 2 will be so much easier. So with that, I have one other question, because we are doing the wrap up, if you can believe that. Is there a single best thing that any author needs to be clear on before they write the word of their next book, which is destined, let's hope this, to be a bestseller?
Yeah, you have to know what the goal of your book is. If you want to sell 10,000 copies, that's fine. If you want to write your book as a big business card that leads people to want to hire you for your speaking, your coaching, your consulting services, that's fine too. But that has to be, your key thing as you start to write the book. And, as I said, we started this conversation off by saying, there are limiting beliefs that stop people from writing a book. I want to let everyone know that I'm giving away a free chapter in my book that talks about all the limiting beliefs. There are like 20 limiting beliefs that I debunk that you can use, you can read, you can get over this hump that's stopping you from writing your book. And if you go to my website, which is the same name as my book, writeyourbookinaflash.com, you can download that free chapter on writeyourbookinaflash.com, get over the hurdles, and start writing your book right away.
And with that, we're going to thank Dan Janal. And if you want to reach out to Dan directly, his email is dan@prleads.com. And you'll have a friend for life, a great advocate, a supporter, and that's what we authors all need. And with that, it's another edition of AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. I'm Judith Briles, your book shepherd, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each